Hello, I'm Frank McShane with Square Peg Consulting at the Whiteboard. I'm a supply chain cash guide, and these are the components of the business-to-business supply chain as I see it. And there are opportunities to generate more cash in every part of this process. Let me show you what I mean. Hello. In today's journey from a cost focus to a cash generation focus, we're going to talk about an overall aspect of the supply chain manufacturing operation, dealing with life cycle of our facilities, our capital equipment, those types of concerns. And it's called life cycle analysis for more cash. So the point here is we need to know exactly where we are in the life cycle of a facility or a large piece of capital equipment in order to determine how much investment to put into that to get the best return. Typically, facilities and equipment go through these phases. They start with design and then build, then operate and maintain for as long as possible, and at the end of the life cycle, a decommissioning phase there. And typically, when we're looking at the dollars invested, it's very high in the design and particularly in the build phase, and then the operate and maintain investment tends to be less and for as long as possible, and then it jumps up again a little bit to the decommission phase here. On the other hand, the investment typically, there's almost no return at the design and build phase, very low. But then all the return starts to kick in the operate and maintain phase, which is why we want that to go for as long as possible. And then it drops off again down to the decommission phase. So this is the return in green, and the cost or the investment really is in red. And it's very important to know where are you in this life cycle. So I worked with a nuclear plant that was going to enter into the open market, having to compete with hydro, gas-fired, solar, much cheaper energy sources. And yet they were going to have to compete on the same basis. And up to that point, they had always been a cost-plus facility in the generation model that they were working in. And that meant they had kind of kept themselves in the design and build phase longer than necessary, and anything new, cool, shiny objects that came along, they would put it in place, and because they could always just add 10% to the cost and get the ratepayers to pay for it. Now they're going to have to compete, couldn't do that anymore. So they had to recognize they really are shifted now strictly into the operate and maintain phase, and they had to reduce the investment there in order to generate the highest return that they could in competing with these other energy sources. So we started to run everything through, every project, every work request, etc., went through an operate and maintain filter. And if it didn't contribute to operate and maintain consistently, safely, efficiently, it didn't happen. And we were able to strip out several $100 million of capital projects, investments, people-related costs, contractors, design engineers, etc., in order to get the cost basis of that plant down to where they could be competitive and generate their target return. So it takes an honest assessment of where are you in your life cycle to know what kind of investment do I need to be making at that point in time, and what kind of return should I be aiming for relative to that investment. And if you're in the operate and maintain play, do not start adding capabilities or gold plating your operation more than what you really need to meet your market demand.